Great. So, yeah, so my name's Holly. um, I am the digital marketer for CallPotential. Just a little bit about me. I have a digital marketing and search engine optimization background. That's what I went to. That's what I was interned in after graduating from college. I got a degree in economics. From there, when I moved to Orlando, I started working for a self-storage marketing and website development company. And so basically our whole niche was just, marketing self-storage facilities. I brought what I knew from SEO. They, brought what they knew from self-storage. And I just, kind of thrived there for a few years, started going to trade shows, met all you lovely people. During that time when I was in that position, I was responsible for, the marketing campaigns for hundreds of different locations of different sizes, online rentals, lead attribution, everything. So I met the gang at Call Potential, Phil and the Murphys, and uh, really liked the product that they had, the lead management product, which is what I was first introduced to, because there had been a lot of times where, as marketers, we spend a lot of time and energy on driving leads and then are disheartened when we hear, our contact come back and tell us that they're not getting any rentals. So as a marketer, I've been in your shoes on both sides. I started working with CallPotential. It's been about 5 years. I've done consulting for large self-storage brands too, and I still continue to consult for Next Door Self Storage, which is our founder's properties. So he has about 17 locations in Illinois. So I still, keep in touch with everything that's going on. Obviously, I'm on the call attribution side now, but I kind of have a little bit experience around everything. So not claiming to be an expert about anything, but if you guys have questions, I know that I probably know the right person to put you in contact with. So with that being said, if you are not familiar with Call Potential, we are the #1 communication software in self-storage. And basically, I'm making that bold claim because we've been awarded the Inside Self Storage Best of Business Award for, I think, well, I don't want to tell you. I guess I'll just say 3 years. We've had other awards before that, but really our contact center software, which is a call center software for you to be able to control your own calls. We don't answer calls third party, but we provide the tools that call centers use to answer calls, so you can answer your calls as effectively as they can, or use them in conjunction with each other. Really, just trying to put those two pieces together. So as our communication software side started to grow more, they started voting for themselves, which was really awesome to see because they were voting for our software, but they're really voting for, what they were doing. So that's why it says #1 up there. And we do a lot of different things that you guys will hear about. And like I said, we got lots of customers on the webinar, so maybe they'll pipe in and let you know what they like about Call Potential. I already, kind of mentioned that chat's open, but we've got a diversity of knowledge levels on the webinar. So I'm going to start off with some kind of basic concepts that we can all relate to, and then build on them so we can get to the more advanced items. But anytime you have questions, comments, suggestions, recommendations, please feel free to drop them in chat. Don't be shy. If I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong. Or, just send me by myself a message. I would appreciate that. So yeah, let's get into it, guys. All right, so our agenda today, we're going to go through why it's important to integrate the call and what that means. This is not just your base level call tracking. This is an integrated call tracking and routing and sophisticated software that connects you from your marketing efforts all the way into your property management software and communicates both ways with them. So once we have that integration, we have the tools that we can do marketing attribution and return on investment. So that's really going to help us allocate those marketing budget dollars, and again, make us look good to our bosses when we come back and we let them know that we're just like really killing the lead generation and conversion game. And then we'll go through some advanced conversion tools. Once you've nailed down generating the leads and you're pretty happy with what you're doing, then we look at other means that we could lower our cost per acquisition, which would be sharpening up our conversions in other places. And then following that, we'll have time for a Q&A, but I don't necessarily want you guys to wait to the end. Sometimes we forget if we wait that long. So if you have questions, feel free to pop them in. So again, the goal of today's webinar is going to be to identify and lower our cost per acquisition. So really that is what we're willing to pay for a new rental. And that goes beyond just, our Google AdWords. That's, our, billboard marketing spends, different marketing sources, whatever we're willing to pay for our cost per acquisition, and then how we can lower that either by sharpening those campaigns and cutting the waste out there, and then also optimizing everything we can do to get that call to close. This is a statistic that we got from the SSA demand study, and I think that you guys will probably relate to it. Some of you might think that that number is a little bit smaller than it should be, and some of you who are in more technology savvy areas might have a higher percentage of new customers come through your online rentals. What we did see last year was an increase in calls. Everybody had contactless, not everybody. If you were lucky, you had contactless solutions, right? But that's not necessarily the way, everything's contactless, but digital is not necessarily the way that everyone wants to convert. Like if they're used to talking in person and now they can't talk in person, maybe they still just like talking to people, so they still want to make that call. We're going to talk about everything, not just calls, but this is going to be more call focused because obviously that's what we do. And if we did everything, we would be here for 3 days because there's so much information to go through. It's really, really impressive. Part of the challenge that we have as marketers, if we have this large amount of our new customers that are coming through calls and we don't have an integrated system, that kind of leaves us in the dark a little bit. We're just really trying to use our gut with what we think is working. I mean, maybe we've got some basic call tracking scenarios, or maybe we're not using anything at all. Maybe so really like there's a gap, and that's the challenge. We're trying to convert those, I call them offline, if it's just a phone, it might have generated online, but it transferred to a phone call. So we're going to call offline because they didn't do the conversion through the website or through the medium that they were using. They're using the call. You have end-to-end customer journey data and attribution from the digital campaign. So if you're paying for AdWords and that AdWords is going to a website and it's converting, you maybe have online rentals and they're paying right there, and then you have all that information, right? Everything's been captured. There's a digital footprint, but the data trail goes cold when your customer picks up the phone if you haven't integrated your calls. And I've seen everything in the past, from trying to correlate phone calls to digital marketing. And these people are, and I'm not saying these people are not advanced. This is just what we had to do even a few years ago, really. Like we had to take the calls that were generated that day. Then we'd have to take our rentals where we had the information. We asked the managers on how they, converted, and if it was Google, and we'd look at the time stats, and we just try to make all the attribution go together. And that's really an exhausting way to do things, and not totally clear on if you're making the right decision. And also that passing through is one way. Sometimes, the call tracking line is generated by the marketing company and it ends at the location. But it doesn't make it through into the property management software where the actual conversion occurs. And if you're just looking at the, call tracking, it could be a customer or someone who was a lead that turned into a customer, but still uses that call tracking number. So, that's kind of where we've been, I think, in the last 5 to 10 years, really trying to make that transition so we know who is on that phone. And that way you're not relying on spreadsheets and campaigns with hundreds of thousands of unique phone numbers, because that's also very frustrating to manage. But again, it just gives you correlation, but not necessarily causation or attribution. So this is a stat we found from Forrester that I love, because voice calls close 30% faster and they spend more. We can dive more into the data at another time, but really, like, there's been some studies that website customers might be more sensitive to price because they're already in a comparison medium, whereas voice calls have a higher intent to buy because they're making a little bit more effort to contact you. And also with the spending 28% more, you don't necessarily have to offer them the discount if they don't ask for it, whereas sometimes on your site they might see the discount before even having that conversation with you. And this isn't necessarily to pit one against the other. We're just saying that the calls are very important too. And call tracking and analytics platforms were, siloed from marketing, like I said, and just the call center, and none of it was integrated. And now we're able to kind of integrate that stuff and attribute those calls better. So here we go. We're going to start into the call tracking 101, and we'll build on it from here. So if you're using something like this, let us know. If you're using something more sophisticated, we'll get to that too, but just kind of basic what call tracking is. Call tracking is you take a unique phone number and you're gonna use that unique phone number for a campaign source. So a campaign source could be a website number, it could be a flyer, it could be if they are a business card, whatever that source is that you want to track. So those tracking numbers, every time someone calls those numbers, it's going to track a call. And those calls get sent to the business phone where you're having people answer. And sometimes it has a campaign source info, but it doesn't necessarily translate into if they converted at the time, if they called back, what the cost per the conversion was. You would have some insights, but if it's not integrated all the way through, like it would be in CallPotential, you're not necessarily seeing the full picture. Just to kind of show you another call tracking 101, this is a Google Ads dashboard. There's a lot of information here, but Google has released some native call tracking. So Google, part of the problem here is, I'll just kind of show you these. I don't know if you guys can see my arrow here, but the first column here, it says extensions. And to pre-frame this again, this is call extensions. So I have a Google ad set up, and the call to action that I have is whether or not, if someone clicks on my ad, it's a click to call, right? So maybe they're searching on mobile, they click the number to call. Then I see how many people clicked on it. I see how many people actually, from looking at it to clicking on it, what the click-through rate was, and then my average cost per call here, and then the cost. So part of the or cost per conversion, part of the problem is Google can only determine a conversion using call duration as their proxy. And that basically means that you determine what a conversion is for you. I believe they have anything from 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Well, 2 minutes to close like a new lead is very, very fast on the phone, I think. I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But I think our calls are a little bit longer than 2 minutes, right? But again, anything else longer than 2 minutes, that's a customer service call. That's people being placed on hold, just kind of general inquiries, and maybe not an intent to rent. So this is gonna, skew your reporting. If you look in Google Ads, they're gonna be very excited and proud of themselves because they're driving you all these conversions, but conversions don't necessarily mean rentals. So I do see what campaign data they came from. And I didn't have room to show here, but there are to the right of this column where it says cost, there's a bunch of other modifiers that you can do: time of day, how long the average call was, if they connected, things like that that you'd find in other kind of base level call tracking. But if you're not integrating what you're doing to close that call and sending that data back, then you're never going to really know. And the person who's doing the marketing for you, if it's not internal, that's going to help them too. Like, they want to give you good leads. They're not just trying to give you the fluff. So Google Ads, did I call it AdWords? I get in trouble for that because, again, I've been in the game for a while and it's Google Ads now. And what can I do here? All right, so 40 to 60% of marketing budgets are wasted not knowing which ads are profitable. And I think that previous example, just showing you what tools were available as a one-on-one experience, why that would be. So Google's calling anything over 2 minutes a conversion. I'm going to take it a step further because we have the tools to do this. We're not going to call it a conversion unless it's a rental. Because again, we want to get down to what's our cost per acquisition and how can we maximize what we're doing to lower our cost per acquisition, so we have more rentals that cost us less money. So be explicit in what you're measuring and reporting on. So make sure whoever is handling your marketing account understands that a conversion is not, I mean, a conversion could be a phone call, but what you really want to report on is a rental, and you have the means to be able to report on a rental by that integration. It's going to give us the full picture. We can integrate all our sources, and it's not just digital. So we're going to just kind of quickly go through some of these metrics. I know you guys probably all know these, but what we're going to look at, what our average length of stay is. I believe if we just use like the SSA's data, they'll say the average length of stay is 12 months. Average person rents a 10 by 10 for $100 a month. So the lifetime value for that customer would be $1,200. Our cost per acquisition is going to be how much our marketing campaign costs divided by the number of new leases. So, did I spend $500 on Google AdWords and then get 10 leads, then, it's $50 per. And our return on investment, basically, if we take what we spent on AdWords and what our lifetime value is, and then we would be able to determine whether or not that's something we want to continue on. All right, call tracking 201. Kurt, I see your question. And I think there is a solution for passing inquiries and call rentals with ads. So I will get you that information and get back to you. Okay, dynamic number insertion basically is a DNI. So what a DNI is if you, so say we're running ads we're running Facebook ads, we're running Google ads, we're running Bing ads, and all of those ads we have optimized to have a rental on our website because everything's been optimized. We got them the information that they want, but really we want to be able to tell what source they came from. So a DNI basically is a line of code that you put on your website, and if someone comes from a Google ad, it'll show them a number that is tied to the Google ad, but on your website. So that way you're not, attributing someone calling or making a rental to just an offline phone call when it came from a paid ad source. And same thing with Facebook and social or whatever you'd want. And basically it's a scripted code that tells the traffic that if they're coming from this place, show them this phone number, and then we can go back and attribute that that's where they came from. Webhooks are an advanced call tracking strategy. We do have some clients who like to make sure that every call is showing up in their Google Analytics and Google Ads. So basically, by creating this webhook, we're passing the data that we have. And this is, so you integrate your Google Ads with your Google Analytics, right? And we're integrated with them through this webhook. So when a call comes in, we're pushing this information. We've got the lead ad, we've got the ad name, the system ad name, customer phone number, location, whatever those parameters are, we're pushing back into analytics so you can have an event for that action. And a lot of people like to look at Google Analytics from like a full picture to kind of see what has happened with that, the conversions, where they're coming, if there's multiple touches, to capture all the information that they can. By passing this information on the caller and analytics, which is connected to Google Ads, like I said, you can create audiences based on this. So an example of how you would create an audience, you would push this information in that this caller became a rental. It was a conversion. So you get the conversion information. You also can add it to a suppression list that if you're using remarketing campaigns, that you don't show your remarketing campaign because this person already converted. So that's an option to reduce your ad spend. So if you're doing remarketing, you're just not remarketing to all your customers all the time, you're adding them to a suppression list. On the other side, if they were created as a lead and they hadn't converted on the first time, you can add them to an audience for retargeting. So maybe that's the time when you would retarget a special to try to get them to come back or to finish the conversion process. So really interesting stuff that you can do with creating audiences. This is kind of to show you how you would create different goals in analytics that you could report on. If the event is a call, this would be kind of where you would set that up for the web hook. Your developer would be able to do this for you. All right, so we're going to move into the advanced call routing. And this is basically what happens after you've tracked the call and you've pushed the data where it needs to go. This is actually routing the call to get it to the person. So it's basically a business phone system and the procedure of automatically distributing inbound calls to a queue, whatever queue that you decide that is. Some people have singular queues, some people have 9, 10 different queues, and about routing them to specific employees or departments following predefined criteria and rules. Kind of the component of why our call routing is advanced is because of our smart route. And basically what our smart route does is that because we're connected to your marketing sources through those call tracking numbers, and we're connected to your property management software to know whether or not the caller is a current tenant or not in the system, we can determine before that call gets put into a call route or call flow, whether or not it's a lead or an existing customer. So basically, just to kind of simplify things, if the caller is a current tenant, or if the caller is not a current tenant, then that call can get routed directly to a rep who's available to take that call. If the caller is a current tenant, then the smart route's going to look in the system and find out what their customer status is and whether or not they're delinquent. If they are delinquent, then smart route's going to direct them to a pay by phone system. Basically, you are late on paying your rent. Would you like to make a payment now and just go through it rather than dropping them in an IVR where they have an opportunity to fall off? If they're not delinquent and they are a current customer, which is found in your property management software, then the smart route is going to forward the caller to an IVR. So whether they need more information, they want to leave a voicemail, or they want to connect to a rep who's not already speaking with an agent. So this just kind of shows you the power behind the smart route. So this is customer payments by channel we did over last year. And you can see that 32%, over 32% of payments were made by pay by phone. If we did not have the smart route that would be able to route them directly to the pay by phone by not going to a manager or an agent first, then that's 30% of those payment calls that need to be taken by a person. So this really frees up a lot of time for an agent to focus on answering that lead call. Yes, Andrew, the smart route workflow is done automatically and basically instantaneously as well. And then RK, you're probably right. You said calculating customer acquisition cost. So it it could. I think that's at the end of the year reporting, but for our marketing campaigns, we want to do the cost per acquisition for that campaign, not necessarily the total for the whole year with such. Lifetime value of a customer include late fees, admin, insurance, and merch sales. Probably, I think so. I think that it's very variable, your lifetime value of a customer, and it's for you to determine. So I'm just kind of simplifying everything, but I think RK, you would know. I'm sure you know, you wrote books on it. I need one of those, by the way, on what the lifetime value for individual properties would be. I'm just kind of simplifying it for this presentation, and not a big fan of math all the time. So there you go. Thanks. All right, so this is an example of a advanced kind of call routing. This is all drag and drop. You can decide, how you want your call to flow. So whether or not you have an internal call center that you're running with your own people, or you have a combination of both, or maybe you just have the call center software that you're using just with managers on locations because you haven't decided to get that large yet with your communication operations. But the inbound call is going to come in from whatever source, go into Smart Route, and you can see here, it's kind of hard to see, it's a little small. Yeah, here. Okay, so if they're delinquent, going to go automatically to payment. If they're not delinquent and there's some indications that it's a lead, we're going to send it over to the location or to an agent. And if it's a current customer that is up to date on rent, then it goes to an IVR. This particular call flow includes a lot of different call queues or call it has a bilingual queue. If you speak Spanish, press 2. That goes to a queue that is answered by either a bilingual agent or someone who speaks fully Spanish. But that person knows, even if they are bilingual, that when that call is coming in, what call queue it's coming from. So they know that if it's the Spanish queue, they're going to answer in Spanish. So you're really providing a lot of context for them. And then they have the payment opportunities here, even if they're not past due, really robust options for how you want to get that call to the right person. And thank you, Michelle, for saying it's a great presentation. I really appreciate that. So if we're focusing on maximizing our ROI and lowering our cost per acquisition, SSA says that voice calls are about 40% of new business, and they close faster and they spend more. So we want to get this call answered as fast as possible. We followed up on within, I think the REITs are aiming for 5 minutes for if a new lead comes in. So we talked about Smart Route and what it does and how it instantaneously goes through to find out if it's a customer, where they called from. There's also some prioritization features on if they do enter a call queue, which we can get to here in a minute. It's more like the conversion optimization we're talking about. This is a little simpler version. I probably should have started out with this one, but basically, if a call comes in, this is someone who has agents specifically for answering calls to relieve the store teams of that call volume. So the call comes in, Smart Route does its thing. Do you need to pay, or are you a current customer or lead, and routes them around so they go exactly where they need to, and they're using context and personalization. So again, we're providing our reps context. So this is what the interface looks like when a call is coming in. So we know that it's a lead, this is the number it came from, what location it's going to, what ad source. That's funny, the Yellow Pages is in there. And then what queue they're calling. So again, if they push the 2 for Spanish, this would be the Spanish queue. Or, there's other queues that you can have, excuse me, that we've seen, like training, if you have someone who's just really awesome at just, kicking butt at closing those sales and has great conversion rate, and maybe you have them as an overflow, or you just have all your lead calls go to them. You could have like that could be your closing queue, like lead calls go to this person, and that person is the one who's doing it. You could have training queues. Everything's recorded, so you can listen to whatever queue you want. If you have, maybe customer calls go to training queues, or maybe you have someone in a training queue working on sales one day, really awesome options to funnel where those calls are going. So the other component of this presentation is determining whether or not you have a lead generation problem or a lead management problem. Call tracking and attribution is just like a fantastic way to do that. Digital impressions don't necessarily equal traffic, but in leads do not equal rentals without optimizing for them. And the same is true with calls. Calls do not equal leads, do not equal rentals without some optimization. So to determine if we have a lead generation problem, we need to determine if we have a lead management problem. So here are some common lead generation problems that I'm sure you guys have come across. The source or campaign is not driving call volume or traffic. So basically, this is maybe you don't have an SEO strategy, search engine optimization strategy, and you're just not really getting a whole lot of calls, and you're not doing paid ads, and you're just not getting a lot of calls generated. So you would know with your call tracking that your efforts are not generating a lot of calls. And you would also too want to integrate the number on your sign. We've done studies that having your phone number on your sign, yes, does drive traffic. On billboards, on your marketing materials, just whatever you can do to get some ideas of where those leads are coming from are great to give you that full picture, and also know where you want to replicate what you're doing with other properties. So that's kind of an easy one. If you're not getting calls, find out if you are targeting the right area. If you have someone else managing your campaign, let them know. Your marketing activities, let them know that you're not getting a lot of leads, and they can start to retarget. Arcane, we do not offer mystery shopping services for the phone. Do you mean like, will our software let you do that, or if we don't physically call and do mystery shopping? But I know we had Carol on a session, and I believe her company is fantastic, Skill Check, with mystery shopping services. Okay, you are very welcome. So yeah, another lead generation problem. You're getting calls, but they're not converting, and you're doing everything on your side to convert them. You're listening to the calls, and they're being dispositioned, and you're finding that they're just the wrong fit, and their distance is just, maybe the distance is wrong. So one of the things Phil had mentioned when we were talking about this was he has locations in the suburbs of Chicago. So he could pay for ads in downtown Chicago, and he could get calls and volume all day, but they're not going to convert because no one's going to drive out to the suburbs. That could be the same way with if you're using some of these companies that might not necessarily make a targeted campaign for you. Maybe they have RV storage in their campaign because that's the templates that they've used for other people, but you don't have RV storage. So by having these calls come through your conversions, you can kind of identify why they're the wrong fit and get back to whoever's managing your marketing, whether it's you, whether it's someone else, and show them kind of where everything's fallen apart a little bit here. Then we have fumbling the call handoff. Is it going to the right phone number? Were the tracking numbers checked to make sure that they were live and they're set up? I've heard horror stories of people who have had call tracking numbers on their website that were never connected or checked to make sure that they go to the right place. So that's something, you definitely want to make sure that is taken care of. Are they, do they know what certain times to generate calls? If they're generating calls after hours and no one's there, if only 10% of people leave voicemails if they don't connect with a rep, like you're just paying for wasted spend that's not going to convert. So a lot of different things you can kind of look at to see what the lead generation problem is. Not knowing your buyer persona, not knowing your target area. If you're getting a lot of calls for another area and not converting them, hey, maybe that's a good opportunity to go buy a facility over there, right? Opportunities, everything's opportunities. And the lead generation problem, which we all want to fix, is a high cost per acquisition cost. And that's just, I've got a couple examples to kind of show what I mean there, but you can't, unless you're tying back the rental to all your sources, you don't have an accurate attribution, and you can't, with confidence say that what you're doing is providing a positive ROI. Yeah, so Wendell, there is a way to notify the call center of a missed call. Basically, rather than notifying of a missed call, we would route it directly to where you want it to go. So you would let them know that, hey, if it's after hours, I want all calls to go here, or if it's missed, I want it to roll over to this phone number. That could be your call center, that could be external call center. However you want it to go, you get to determine what those rules are. So here's a kind of Google Ads example. This is if Google Ads had a meeting with you, they're like, we generated 100 calls for you. 50 of those calls were over 2 minutes. So we're going to count that as a conversion. This is a Google Ads conversion, not our conversion, because it's just talking about duration. And because Google Ads gives you the option to pay for their conversions, what you decide you want to pay, you kind of bid, and they decide if they want to air your ads. For this particular instance, we have $20 a call, which is not unthinkable for what Google Ads will charge for a conversion. We've seen $12, $13 in some awesome markets, and we've seen like $45 when Google decided it wanted to do its smart bidding on its own. So just make sure you know what you're paying for their conversion, because you're not paying $20 a rental here. In this example, you're paying $20 for that 2-minute phone call. So we spent $2,000 for this ad campaign. It generated 100 calls. 50 of those calls were over 2 minutes, but we have no insight whether those were customers or those were leads. $20 for each phone call. We spent $2,000. So if we're just going to assume a conversion rate because we don't know, we're going to think that we got 25 new rentals here, right? And then that's what going to put us at $80 a rental. I got my Zoom toolbar here. It's kind of hard to see. Now, would you keep doing that, right? Wait, other way. Sorry. Okay, so would you pay $80 for a rental? I think most of us would, right? I guess it depends on where you're at. But $80 a rental is not too bad. Now, if we go back and we integrate our calls with our property management software with a communication software that communicates both ways, we're going to learn maybe that those 100 out of those 100 calls that were over 2 minutes, or 100 calls that were generated, 50 were over 2 minutes, right? But 30 of those calls were existing customers. And then if 20 of those calls left were leads and we converted 50% of them, we got 10 new rentals. And we know those are rentals because we've fact checked with our system. We went back and saw how many leads were generated, how many were converted, how many were followed up on, and then at the end of the day, how many rented. So at that point in time, we're paying $200 a rental. And I think that would give a lot more people some pause there, right? it depends on what market you're in. I'm sure in some of the hotter markets that might be okay, but that's kind of pushing the top end of what I hear operators willing to pay. All right, so I'm going back here to the chat. Wendell, you said you're doing just that. If it does not get answered by the call center, it gets to a dead end. So there's no voicemail set up. Is that what you're saying at that point in time? Um, I I guess I need some more clarifying on that. If you want to send me an email after this, Wendell, I can help you look into that. Andrew says, if we have tracking numbers for each of our locations set up for all campaigns, digital and offline, how long would it take to put these numbers into CallPotential? Would a CallPotential rep help with this? Yes, Andrew. So it doesn't take it takes a little bit of work. I don't want to necessarily quote how much time, but not probably as long as you think. And yes, that's kind of like what CallPotential, one of the reasons we're amazing. And I say we, I mean our support team and our onboarding team is fantastic. They'll handle that. They'll work with you. They'll get everything transferred over. And as far as for a time, I'm not sure how many locations you have and how many tracking numbers you have, but they would be able to give you some information on that. So we did kind of briefly go through just some Google Analytics conversions with pushing some insight from the webhooks into Google Analytics, and then also creating audiences based on that. There's more that you can do with this, but I mean, we're kind of running on time here. So we're going to do another iteration of this call tracking, advanced call tracking conversions, following up, where we'll get into more of this information. For real quickly, for a lead management problem, you know, if the calls don't get answered, they don't leave voicemail very often. And that's a problem. You're paying for a call, you're paying $20 a call, we said, right? Like you're paying $20 for a call, and they're not getting answered. There's some issues there. So one is are you using an IVR where if they call, they have to press a number to get to someone? And if you are, is it too complicated? Are they, you know, losing interest before they go out? Are they on hold for too long? That they don't get to someone who's qualified to solve their problems for them. Is that because it's a understaffed issue during key times of call volume, or is the call, you know, not getting routed to the right place? And again, are you sending them someplace when they're not open? So those are all ways that you can kind of look into why your calls aren't being answered. There's a lot of data in CallPotential that you could find out, you know, when calls are answered, when they're abandoned, what time that is, and be able to kind of, you know, make some adjustments based on that. Again, for another problem for lead management is information is not captured. I know you guys are all savvy on here, so hopefully you've got this already taken care of. But one of the fun things about my past lives were listening to lead calls and then dispositioning them. So you would the line would be connected, and someone, you know, it's someone who's looking for self-storage, because it was all self-storage that we were doing the dispositioning for, looking for self-storage, and the person who answers the call says, hello. There's no introduction of that it's a, you know, property, nothing like that. So then the customer on the other end, or I'm sorry, the prospect on the other end is like, hey, you know, I'm coming to town later. I want to know, I want to store a 1-bedroom apartment. I'm gonna be gone for a month. You know, how much are they? The manager or whoever answered the phone would, you know, give them a quote for, you know, $85, and the person would say, okay, cool, I'll call you back, and then that would be the end. So no information was captured, nothing was followed up. You know, manager said they're going to call back. They're going to call back. So that's, you know, part of one of the problems of whether or not a marketing company is saying they're driving leads, and then the operations is saying, well, there's no leads in my system, so I don't know what you're talking about. But if you have access to call tracking recording system, you can see the interesting insights. So you can see if the call is being answered, if it's being answered appropriately, And you can also, use those opportunities for training. So are they answering the phone appropriately? We've got dynamic script cards that make it real easy for them. They don't have to follow the card, but it's just a place for them to put the information in. And you can also, with those calls being recorded, you can forward them back their own calls, and it's tied to the record. And then you can also forward really rock star calls that are people are doing a fantastic job for training opportunities for your other team. There we go. And then, if obviously a lead management problem is the call is not converted, either if that's on the phone at the time, there's follow-up that can happen after that. But, some of the conversion tools that we use to convert that call is once we've got their information in, we have the ability to text them a link to electronically sign their lease at that point in time. They've already made the investment. They have a high intent to buy. You have what they're looking for. If they're ready to make the close, don't make them come in for a tour and show them where, the thing is, unless that's really what you want to do. Just try to close them on the phone if you can. So this is kind of like taking the how online rentals have been fantastic about driving traffic to websites and then converting them on websites and getting the payment and converting the lease right there. Boom, closed loop reporting. This is doing the same thing with phones. So we're driving the traffic to a call tracking number and a communication software. We're entering everything in while we're on the phone with them, and then we're closing the deal and we're sending them a link to go ahead and sign. So it's all done easy peasy, and we're reporting on that. We made the call, we made the conversion, and the lease is signed. They're not going to drive past your facility to go check out the person across the street when they've already committed with you. So being able to convert while you're on the phone is obviously an advantage. And if they don't convert while you're on the phone with them, follow-up is, crucial. So the highest conversions that we've seen are anywhere from 2 to 7 follow-ups. Not everyone converts on the first time, and it's fine if you want to do this manual, but even better is if you can automate this. So you can create workflows, you can create templates that are different channels. They go out through email, they go out through text, they go out through calls. They're personalized. So it's, I talked to someone on the phone and I didn't rent, and I, maybe I wanted to talk to my husband before I decided that I was going to put all his stuff in storage. And I get a text right after that has my name, because they talk to me, that they did a study too, that a person's favorite thing that they hear is their own name. So you got me there. You said my name, Holly. You sent me a quote for that we actually talked about. And then, a link to a Google Maps link on how to get there direction wise. That's really personalized. And then if I, don't call back at that point in time, I get a couple more messages over the weekend in different channels. It's still all personalized to me. And when I do finally call back, they have the information, because all of those items were automated and manually tracked. And some of them, if there was a manual option in there, that's also recorded. So if I call and I talk to Susie and it's Jack's day off, and Jack was the one who I was talking with, Susie still knows all the information and can personalize our interaction because that's all been captured. Also, because it's recorded, I can't go back and tell Susie that Jack said I get 3 months free, because she can listen to the call and see that Jack didn't offer me a special at all. So kind of nifty. Okay, Kurt, how do we send them a link in the follow-up email or SMS message where they can complete the rental, make the payment, and have an e-sign agreement signed? Kurt, I will have our team get you the training on how to do that. So that's something a lot of people are using. So let me take a note here real quick. Okay, I'll get that to you right after this. All right, personalization. I was just talking about how much I love hearing my own name. 91% of consumers say personalization makes them more likely to buy. If you've ever called like insurance or someplace you had a bad experience where you had to keep repeating yourself and you were online forever. Okay, let's say like some of the bad airlines. You need to talk to someone customer service and you just keep getting transferred and transferred and transferred and transferred, and you have to repeat yourself every time you talk to someone is the most frustrating thing in the world. If I can call back to ABC storage and Susie answers the phone because my information has been saved and she says, "Hey Holly, how you doing?" And I'm just like so excited that I feel like a VIP, like someone knows me, someone remembers me. And it's all just based on tailoring their future experiences on the previous interactions. So here's kind of so this is a prioritization feature for our call queues. You can decide. So say you've got, let's say you have 3 call queues, right? You have one for sales, you have one for service, you have one for payments. You can decide that if there are multiple calls coming into that queue, you might have multiple people answering it, but if you have multiple calls coming into that queue, that all lead calls or sales calls are prioritized to be answered first. And they're going to go to the agent that is best at closing because you connected it this way, right? And then you're going to maybe have service come second, and then payment, they already have the option, they can make the payment on their own. And if they decide that they still want to talk to someone, they can be maybe third in queue. And however you want to do the priorities, up to you. Obviously, like since this is a conversion webinar, I say sales leads should go first. You're paying for those, so let's get them done. With that being said, if you are on a really high call volume day, and you still want to have a good customer experience, we do have the callback feature. So if you have 4 leads that are maybe being answered and someone's been just kind of waiting in a second priority for a customer service associate to talk about what their options are for expanding into a different unit, they can press 9 and request to be called back by the agents when they're free. So you're still giving them the personalized, or you're prioritizing how they're being funneled into your sales and service queues, but you're also giving them the customer experience that, hey, we don't want you to have to sit and wait on hold the whole time. Go ahead and hit 9 and we'll give you a call back. We know your time's valuable. Same thing with task prioritization. We have follow-up tasks that every day, whether you have an agent or a manager, there's tasks that are follow-up, there's tasks that are, payment related, there's, a laundry list of tasks they have to do every day. Well, when a new lead comes up, we have the feature now that we can prioritize that to be at the top of the list. So if a web lead comes in and it's a reservation, it's not a rental, it can go straight up to the top to alert the person who's on site and doing these follow-ups that, hey, this is a high value task that we would like you to do first. And again, that's what you can kind of decide what's more important for you. Maybe it's a call center lead that wasn't followed up on, or that wasn't converted, that you need to follow up on. It's really robust, all the different priority features we have available for conversions. So, oops, this is so, wow, here we go. All right, so the schedule strategy session. I know we've got a bunch of customers on. We went through a lot of new things and features. I know we've done some communication in the past. I don't know if you're using them or not. If you want more information about how to use them, or maybe there's something that you're not using that could make an impact, feel free to reach out to us. If you're not a customer, we also do strategy sessions. I believe we're gonna pop the link into, yeah, Alyssa already got it. So pop the link into chat if you want to talk, if you want to do a strategy session, look at what you're doing with your call tracking and routing, where your opportunities are to lower your cost per acquisitions and convert more rentals. We're here for you. We have operators on our team, we've got marketers on our team, we've got experts. Really appreciate you guys. So if there's any more questions, I'm popping back into the questions here. Here's our phone number if you want to reach us, my email if you want to reach out to us too. Kurt, the Press 9 feature work at the store level. I do not know. If you have call queues for your store level, I believe so, but I think that's something I have to get with Wendy, because she knows a lot more about the ins and outs at the store level than I do for sure. So I have my notes. I'm gonna circle back with you and your customer success manager and get you that information. Do we have any more questions, guys? Give it a couple more minutes. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you taking your time out to spend with us today. We're gonna get this processed, get it sent out, uploaded. So if you need anything, please, we're here for you. We're here to be a resource. I really appreciate it.